Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, the fascinating world of your brain.
Yeah, exploring some really surprising ways stress and human connection shape who you are.
Exactly. Get ready for some real aha
Mm.
moments, I think, about what's happening sort of beneath the surface.
And right off the bat, something that really stands out is, the sheer power of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. There was this study where people just visualized lifting weights, didn't actually lift anything.
Just thought about it.
Just thought about it. And after a couple of weeks, they actually saw a measurable increase in muscle strength, like 13%.
Wow, 13% just from thinking. That's incredible.
It really is. It makes you wonder just how much potential we haven't even tapped into, right?
Totally. It makes you think, yeah, what else is possible?
Yeah.
So our goal today is to really dig into some core ideas.
Okay.
We're going to explore the surprising way stress can affect not just you, but maybe those around you too.
Mm-hmm. That contagion idea.
Yeah, and we'll look at its sneaky connection to that stubborn belly fat.
Always a popular topic.
Right. And unpack whether stress is truly all in your head. Plus, we're diving into the amazing science of how we connect. Subtle cues, hormones.
The good stuff, oxytocin and all that.
Exactly. Okay, let's start with stress then, the impact on your body.
Let's do it. So, cortisol, right? The main stress hormone.
Yeah.
What's fascinating and maybe a bit weird is that cortisol can actually, leak out. It can be detected in your sweat.
In sweat, really?
Yeah. And it seems it can subtly influence the stress levels of people nearby, like an invisible emotional signal. And if we connect this to survival mechanisms, when you're under chronic stress, right, that cortisol stays high. Your body tends to store fat, particularly around your abdomen, that visceral fat.
Ah, the belly fat connection.
Exactly. And it can be really persistent because your body thinks, okay, survival threats store energy. It's linked to this primal response.
That's wild to think my stress could be physically wafting off me and affecting someone else.
It's a subtle effect, but the potential is there.
And that stubborn belly fat finally makes a bit more sense in that context.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about stress being subjective? Is it really just about how I feel?
Well, yes and no. On one level, yeah, stress is often defined as your perception, right?
Wow.
Your personal interpretation of whether a load, physical, mental, whatever, feels like too much to handle.
Okay, so perceptions is key.
Perception plays a huge role. However, and this is really important, even if you think you're coping fine, if those cortisol levels stay high for a long time, your brain gets the signal, threat, danger. It doesn't really distinguish nuances perfectly, and that triggers real physiological changes. Inflammation is a big one. So your experience is personal, but the biological fallout is quite real.
So my body doesn't necessarily know the difference between, say, a looming work deadline and, an actual tiger chasing me.
Yeah. If the cortisol response is prolonged, the downstream effects can be similar. Yeah. It just knows high alert. That's a really important distinction to make.
Okay. And what about good stress? Is that a real thing or?
It's maybe more helpful to think about an adaptive response. You face a challenge, your body gives you a temporary surge of hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, to help you focus, perform, react.
Right, like getting ready for a presentation or something.
Exactly. That's healthy. That's necessary. The problem is when that surge becomes a constant flood,
When it doesn't switch off.
Right. It's that prolonged state of high alert that leads to the negative health stuff. So a short-term spike, fine. Beneficial even, living there constantly. That's the issue.
Got it. A quick push is, okay, constant pressure is where the trouble starts. Now, this idea of stress being contagious, that sounds almost sci-fi. How does that work?
It does sound a bit out there, doesn't it? But there's some interesting science. Think about the phenomenon of women who live or work closely together.
Oh, like their cycles syncing up.
Exactly. That's thought to be due to pheromones, these chemical signals in sweat, subtly influencing each other's hormones.
Okay.
Well, the thinking is that cortisol, that stress hormone we keep talking about, might operate in a similar way. Your body releases it. It's in your sweat, potentially.
And others can pick up on it subconsciously.
That's the idea. It's not like you sniff someone's armpit and feel stressed.
Good.
But those chemical signals might be detectable on some level. So just being around someone who's really stressed out could potentially nudge your own stress levels up.
Wow. Even if I felt fine before.
Potentially, yes. And the effect seems to be stronger depending on social dynamics. Leaders, for example.
Oh, how so?
Their stress levels seem to have a bigger impact on their teams. The cortisol levels of people lower in a hierarchy can be more influenced by the leader's stress state.
That adds a whole other layer to leadership responsibility, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just managing tasks, it's managing your internal state because it actually ripples outwards.
And just trying to hide it, like put on a brave face, that doesn't stop the chemical signals.
Probably not entirely, no. The physiological response is still happening. Those signals are likely still being released. It really highlights how important active stress management is, especially for people in influential positions.
Okay, that's sobering.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears to something maybe a bit warmer connection. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, oxytocin. Hugely important for social connection, trust, feeling safe with others.
And what triggers it?
Well, several things. Eye contact is a big one, especially that direct gaze, right eye to left eye.
Right to left, specifically.
There's some interesting research suggesting that particular gaze is especially powerful, particularly in mother-baby bonding. It creates this kind of emotional resonance loop, affects the amygdala, the brain's emotional center. And that kind of eye contact can foster bonding in adults too. It signals openness, connection.
So making a conscious effort to really look at someone, not just glance, could actually be changing brain chemistry in both of us.
It absolutely could. And it's not just eyes. Physical touch, handshakes, hugs, even just a pat on the arm boosts oxytocin.
Okay.
Laughing together, that shared positive emotion, even taking a warm bath.
A bath. How does that work?
The thinking is that the feeling of immersion, being enveloped by the warm water, might mimic the feeling of a hug physiologically.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And shared experiences in general, even just going through something together, not necessarily traumatic, but a shared emotional event, can release oxytocin and build connection.
It's amazing how these small, everyday things can have such a profound chemical basis for our relationships. Now, another term that came up was neuroplasticity. I hear it a lot. But break it down for us.
Right. So neuroplasticity is basically your brain's ability to change, adapt, and rewire itself. It's not this fixed thing you're born with that starts developing at 25.
So it keeps changing throughout life.
Throughout your entire life. It's constantly reorganizing in response to your experiences, learning, thoughts, environment, everything.
It's like my brain is always under construction. And I actually have some say in the blueprints.
That's a great analogy, exactly. And by engaging in certain activities, especially ones that are challenging, you can actually strengthen higher-level cognitive functions. Things like emotional regulation, managing your feelings, problem-solving, flexible thinking, even becoming aware of and overcoming your own biases.
That's incredibly hopeful. It means we're not just stuck with the brain we have right now.
Not at all. There's always potential for growth and change.
So what kind of activities really push the brain in this way? What helps neuroplasticity?
Well, things that are novel and complex are great. Learning a new language is a classic example, or learning a musical instrument. They engage so many different brain areas.
Okay, those are big ones. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. Even smaller things. Traveling to an unfamiliar place, trying a new route home, having conversations with people who think differently, picking up a new hobby. Anything that pushes you out of your mental ruts.
So novelty and challenge are key. Stepping outside the comfort zone, mentally.
Precisely. But, and this is crucial, it's not just about mental exercises. The brain-body connection is fundamental.
Right. You can't just think your way to a better brain if the body's falling apart.
Pretty much. Your brain functions best when its basic needs are met. Good quality sleep, nutritious food, staying hydrated, managing that stress we talked about. These are the foundations.
They're non-negotiable for optimal brain function.
Absolutely. You need that solid base for neuroplasticity to really take off.
And sleep seemed particularly important in the discussion. Why is sleep so critical?
Sleep is prime time for brain maintenance. There's this amazing system called the glymphatic system. Think of it like the brain's overnight cleaning crew.
Cleaning crew. What does it clean?
It flushes out metabolic waste products that build up during the day, including toxins associated with things like Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases.
Wow, and it needs sleep to do that.
Yes, it's significantly more active during sleep. That's why getting enough, typically around 7 to 8 hours for most adults, is so vital. It needs that time to do its job properly.
And there was a tip about sleeping position.
Yeah, interestingly, research suggests sleeping on your side seems to be the most efficient position for this glymphatic clearance.
On your side?
Yeah.
Who knew? That's a really practical takeaway.
It is. Simple, but potentially impactful long term.
Okay, so we have stress impacting us, maybe even others. We have this amazing brain that can change. What are some practical things I can actually do to manage the stress and encourage that positive change, that neuroplasticity?
Great question. There are definitely actionable things. Physical exercise is huge, especially aerobic activity, getting your heart rate up. It helps burn off excess cortisol, literally sweat it out sometimes.
Okay, move the body. What else?
Journaling, or even just talking things out loud to yourself or someone else. Getting thoughts and feelings out of your head can help release their hold and process stress.
Externalizing it somehow.
Exactly. And as we just covered, prioritizing sleep. Really making that 7, 8, maybe even closer to 8.25 hours a non-negotiable. It's crucial for memory consolidation, emotional processing, and that brain cleaning.
Sleep, exercise, journaling.
Yeah.
Got it. And the mental challenges.
Yes, keep learning. Pick up that instrument, learn some phrases in a new language, do puzzles, read challenging books, keep feeding your brain novelty.
Okay, these feel doable. Now, something else that came up was the power of mindset, and even the specific language we use.
Yeah, this was fascinating, the idea of psychological priming, how your beliefs and expectations can literally shape your physical reality.
You mean like the placebo effect?
Similar principle, yeah. The example given was that study with octogenarians. They mentally and physically sort of relived being in their 60s.
And what happened?
They actually showed improvements in things like posture, flexibility, even eyesight, just from shifting their mindset about aging.
That's mind-blowing.
It really is. And it connects to the language we use, our internal self-talk, the words we choose when speaking. It all reinforces beliefs and shapes behavior.
So even saying, I need to do this versus I get to do this or I choose to do this, that small shift matters.
It can. Absolutely. It shifts your sense of agency, of control versus obligation. Using empowering language matters.
And there was also the idea of challenging perceived limitations, like the anecdote about eyesight.
Right. Someone basically deciding they didn't accept the need for reading glasses, focused on challenging that belief, and apparently experienced improvement. Now, that's anecdotal, but it illustrates the principle. Don't automatically accept limitations. Question them. Your belief about what's possible plays a role.
It's like our beliefs set the boundaries of our potential, in a way.
In many ways, yes. Which leads naturally into the idea of manifestation, but from a neuroscience perspective.
Right, not magic, but brain science.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Exactly. It's not about mysteriously attracting things through vibes. It's about how changing your thoughts, focus, and beliefs changes you, your attention, your motivation, your actions.
So my brain becomes geared towards noticing opportunities and taking actions aligned with my goals.
Precisely. Your brain filters reality based on what you deem important. Action boards, vision boards, they can be useful tools to clarify goals and keep them top of mind.
But you still have to do the work.
You still have to do the work. They're reminders and focus aids, not magic wands.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I want to, say, manifest a great relationship.
The neuroscientific approach would say, focus on becoming the kind of person who would attract and sustain that relationship. Embody the qualities you seek.
So it's about internal change first.
Very much so. You tend to attract people who resonate with your current level of, let's say, psychological evolution, and yes, even your unhealed wounds. So personal growth is key.
That's a much more grounded take on manifestation. The conversation also briefly touched on some older practices, ancient wisdom.
Yeah, just a nod to things like humming and chanting. Practices found in many cultures. There's some suggestion they might actually have physiological benefits, calming the nervous system, maybe boosting creativity through vibrations.
Interesting, like tapping into something primal.
Possibly. And also a reminder that some ancient cultures maybe had a broader acceptance of things like neurodiversity or different identities than we sometimes assume.
Good point. History isn't always a straight line forward. Then we came back to community and connection. So important.
Hugely important. Our evolutionary history is all about the tribe, the community, safety in numbers, shared resources, and crucially, physical closeness for releasing those bonding hormones like oxytocin.
We're wired for connection.
Deeply wired, which led to the interesting point about sleep divorces, couples sleeping separately.
Yeah, what about that? Sometimes it's necessary for practical reasons, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's practical for getting good sleep. But the potential downside raised was whether that lack of consistent nighttime physical proximity, that casual touch, might slowly erode some of that oxytocin-fueled bonding over time.
Something to consider, maybe. A trade-off.
Perhaps. And it ties back to that idea of social contagion we discussed with stress. It goes beyond stress.
How so?
Your social circle influences your habits, your attitudes, your health behaviors, even your level of success. You tend to mirror the people you spend the most time with.
So choose your tribe wisely.
Very wisely. Surround yourself with people who support your growth, who are maybe striving for similar positive changes. Their energy and habits are contagious in both good and bad ways.
Okay, that's powerful advice. Choose your influences. Now, diet came up again with neurogenesis.
Right. Neurogenesis, the actual birth of new brain cells, which, yes, is still happening in the adult brain.
More good news for neuroplasticity.
Definitely. And two key things support it. Aerobic exercise. Again.
Good old exercise.
Can't beat it. And diet. Specifically, foods rich in compounds called anthocyanins. They're potent antioxidants.
Antho what now?
Anthocyanins, think dark pigments, blueberries, blackberries, black beans, purple-sprouting broccoli, even good quality dark chocolate and coffee have them.
So eating colorful, especially dark-colored, foods is good for growing new brain cells.
That's the idea. Those pigments protect the brain and support the neurogenesis process. So add some color to your plate.
Will do. Now, changing stubborn habits, that's the million-dollar question for many people. What was the process outlined?
It was broken down into a few key steps. First, awareness. You have to really notice the pattern. When does it happen? What triggers it?
Okay, shine a light on it.
Exactly. Second, focused attention. Really pay attention to the triggers and the consequences, both immediate and long-term. Feel the downsides.
Make it conscious.
Yes. Third, deliberate practice. Consciously choose and practice the new desired behavior instead of the old one, over and over.
Repetition.
Crucial. And fourth, accountability. Whether it's telling someone, using an app, joining a group, some way to stay on track and motivated, especially when it gets tough.
Awareness, focus, practice, accountability. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Sounds like work, though.
Change usually is work, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that framework helps, and a similar idea applies to boosting confidence or self-esteem.
How so?
It starts with awareness again. Identify those recurring negative thoughts, those inner critic messages that undermine your confidence.
Know your enemy, so to speak.
Kinda, yeah. Then create positive affirmation statements that directly counteract those negative thoughts. But they need to feel at least somewhat believable to you.
Okay, not just empty positivity.
Right. And then repetition. Consistently repeat these positive affirmations. The idea is you're actively weakening the old negative neural pathways and strengthening new, more positive ones.
Like carving new grooves in the brain.
Exactly. You're consciously retraining your inner dialogue.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. It feels like we went from, stress leaking through skin.
Right, the tangible nature of stress.
All the way to literally rewiring our own brains through thought and action. That visualization experiment at the start really set the stage, didn't it?
It really did. It underscores that incredible power residing right there, inside your own head.
And thinking about those subtle influences, the stress contagion, the power of eye contact, of touch.
Yeah, these aren't just abstract concepts. They're happening in our interactions all the time, shaping our connections.
So maybe for everyone listening, consider just one small thing you could try based on all this. Could be a few minutes of visualization.
Or adding some blueberries to your breakfast.
Or just noticing your self-talk today, paying attention.
Exactly. This deep dive, it's really just a starting point, isn't it? A glimpse into this fascinating world.
Absolutely. The more you understand about how your brain works, how stress affects you, how connection happens, the more power you have.
So what questions came up for you during this? What areas feel intriguing now? Let that curiosity guide you.
Use these insights as a springboard for your own continued exploration.
Definitely.
And maybe as a final thought to leave people with, what could you choose to change starting today? And then really choose to feel great about making that change.
Yeah, that power of choice. It really lies within you.
Thank you for diving deep with us today.